Hi, my name is Nancy Love, and I was trying to start something called the Planet Peace Project with the warriors and the sadists and the idiots and the animal abusers and the drug dealers and the human slave runners, both the people who traffic in prostitution and the people who sell whole people as slaves and do worse. Have pretty much convinced me by now that there will be no planet peace in our lifetime. And I mean that broadly, not just what I was trying to do, but the people who believe more in war than love have pretty much won this world over, and the plants and the animals are the ones suffering. The children who could be taught anything, the children are like capable of learning how to love others, but they're, for the most part, from what I can tell, being taught how to fear and hate others. And how smart is that, really? This could be a playground of love and beauty. This could be a paradise and a garden. But instead, we've pockmarked the world with our weapons of war. And we spend somewhere between every 20% to as much as 40 or 50% of our money on creating new and better ways to kill one another and the world. How smart is that, really? This has to end, and it will come by building bridges of peace between individuals. I have seen communication build understanding. I have seen understanding build compassion. I have seen compassion build bridges, and I have seen bridges build peace between individuals and tribes that would have otherwise remained at war. And all that had to happen to start that process was communication. When I was a very young child, I was handed a book by the military intelligence community about like the divine spirit. I'm kind of glowing here, I can tell. Um, Somebody handed me a book on Russians communication and telepathic experiments on animals and people. And I said, well, this is fascinating. I'm interested. And they said, we want you to read this and we want you to understand that we're doing pretty much the same thing because if they're doing it, we have to do it. I said, well, okay. And then last night, I didn't look at all of it, but I was about to, at some point, I'm going to look at a documentary called CIA Third Eye Spies or something. It's about telepathic and remote viewing experiments that, you'd think all that would be fascinating just for its own right, and here again could be used to create community and harmony. But instead, of course, it's weaponized. I grew up in the military intelligence community, and people would say, how did you learn so much about spirituality and all these things that might be considered paranormal? And I would say, the military taught me. Ever seen The Men Who Stare at Goats, the movie or the novel? I was handed that book, the First Earth Battalion book, when I was 14 years old, and said, they said, we want you to be a team leader for this, a captain of the First Earth Battalion. So they're studying everything. They study religion. They've checked out, and by they I mean the military, not only the United States but others. They've checked out the DNA from the Shrouded Turret. They've studied all kinds of things that are ordinarily thought of as being in the religious or the spiritual sphere. And the reason they go into that sphere is not to create sphere alliances, it's to create better weapons of war. And I'm telling you, if you try to examine the power of love in all creation because you want to weaponize it, you're barking up the wrong tree. You're barking up the serpent tree. Because love cannot be weaponized. There, I've said it. Whatever power of creation caused all of this to be set in motion, this great swirling mystery of our lives, you can't weaponize that. Some people call it God. Not gonna happen. People who try to do that are bastardizing and um, lowering the highest of high. Can't work. Gotta backfire. Kaboom. Big kaboom now. So I have so much more to say about this, and I'm at, I think, a low ebb in terms of my optimism and my belief in the beauty of humanity, and that's a shame. Because one of the things the United States military intelligence community taught me when I was a child was that corruption of the best is the worst. To corrupt and make pessimistic and despairing the best among us is the worst that the worst among us can do. But I created a corollary to that over the last 10 years or so because I've met so many corrupt people who so wanted me, to be recruited into their ways of hatred and misery and despair and criminality. Criminals really, really, really want to corrupt and recruit the good because we scare the heck out of them. How did you keep clean hands? Easy. I had something called moral dignity. You should try it. The corollary that I made to corruption of the best is the worst is redemption of the worst is the best. When those who've done their worst and been their worst and allowed themselves to be lowered so horribly by the temptations and the threats in their lives and the recruitment processes that evil will always want to be, promulgating. When these people start turning back to the light and start finding some kind of spark of love in their hearts and start wanting to serve something higher than evil and start wanting to do something good instead of bad, that is a very, very beautiful thing to see. And you want to nurture it and you want to see it flower. So I've been told that I have touched the hearts of people who long since forgot that they had hearts. Guess I should stick around to try to touch some more, huh? The redemption of the worst is the best. It's the best thing that can happen to the worst, and it's the best thing that can happen to the world. So I just hope that people will assist me in not completely losing all faith in humanity, because I've lost too much already. The 5 most precious beings on the world to me were taken by people so corrupt, so foul, so greedy, so stupid that they hurt them, from what I understand. And therefore, I lost my reason to breathe. But I am still breathing. My animal form wants its life. And believe me, I've got plenty to cry about, and if you're paying attention, so do you. Uh, but my new reason to breathe because a person needs one. Otherwise, I think they just stop. Is justice and righteousness and seeking not only punishment for those who are cruel to the innocent, but the redemption of those who are cruel to the innocent. I would like to see the whole species lay down its weapons of war and stop using that as an excuse. As long as they're doing it, we've got to do it. As long as they're creating chemical weapons and nerve gas and biological weapons and geological weapons, as long as the other side is trying to figure out how to create earthquakes and tsunamis and, you know, willing to scorch and burn land to keep people from eating and growing food, as long as they're doing it, we've got to do it. Well, who's going to stop that? Who's going to stop that now? At some point, the they and the we have got to get together on a bridge of peace. We've got to start acting like we're actually the highest form of life on this earth, because at this point, we really are not. We're killing off species every single day. We're destroying rainforests. Hey, guess what? Rainforests create oxygen. We breathe oxygen. Yeah, remember fourth grade science class? Anybody paying attention in fourth grade, fifth grade biology? So, uh, God, I am so tired of trying to help save the world in which the vast majority of people are weaponizing and thinking that the they and the we aren't the same us. There is a concept called the family of man, and I was trained to believe that everyone I've ever seen, that person there, that person over there, those kids playing, everybody is my brother or sister. It is a rainbow world. And when I was a kid, yeah, I was growing up in the 60s and 70s when the rainbow world, and it was the dawning of the age of Aquarius and everything. But hey, for a little while, things were really getting beautiful around here, or at least in America. People were coming together. People were believing in a future that embraced all. And then the 80s happened, and greed happened, and the pendulum kept swinging back and forth. Well, I'd like to see the pendulum stop on the side of good and righteousness and decency and unity and inclusivity. I would like to see that a lot, because we do have common enemies, and it's us. Over the course of many decades, I've heard that war will probably continue between tribes until the human species is united by a common enemy. And that common enemy could be a pandemic. That common enemy could be some sort of worldwide geological or climate change. Yeah, that could be the the common enemy could be weapons of mass destruction. We have the capacity to blow the Earth out of its orbit 6 times over. If mutually assured destruction occurs, we could literally knock the planet out of its orbit and send it, chunks of it, because it's going to break up, chunks of it hurtling into the sun or spinning off into space due to centrifugal force. We have the capacity to destroy the world. You don't think that's a good enough reason to unite? The common enemy, hey, look in the mirror. Look at the militaries. Look at your politicians. Look at your so-called religious leaders, some of whom are extremely corrupt and just have their hand out and know that they're con artists and just want your money. The religious leaders, the truly religious leaders, need to become the spiritual leaders. And the political leaders need to become truly spiritual. Not trying to weaponize faith as just another tool against society, right? So that common enemy, some have suggested, many have suggested that it could come from outer space. That there's it could be an extraterrestrial type of phenomenon, whether that would be an an asteroid, or some other, like something goes wrong with the sun, or like there's an excellent film called Knowing with Nicolas Cage, and it's a beautiful film in many ways because something goes wrong with the sun, and very few people know what is going down, but it could be even an extraterrestrial life form. And before you scoff at that, realize that I don't suffer fools lightly. And if you want me to respect your intelligence, then you need to listen. Because some people think it's either stupid or crazy to think that there is life that has developed on other worlds. But I grew up at a national security agency attached military intelligence base. And I promise you, on my honor, not just as a humanoid, but as an immortal soul. It's stupid or crazy not to understand the reality that life has developed elsewhere and that the universe is really a diaspora. There's probably, it's like this huge garden. There's a galactic garden of life out there. Some of it's probably really friendly. Some of it's probably not. Albert Einstein is said to have uttered his last words on his deathbed. They said, "What are you thinking, Albert?" And he said, "Is the universe friendly?" The answer is probably yes and no. You can't say that are humans, like if some force came here, some other type of species came here, are humans friendly? Well, you can't say ubiquitously yes or no. Some will be. Some have the strength of character and courage to face the foreign and embrace it. So some would have the strength, the character, and the courage and the intellect to hear someone say, "We come in peace. Yea, verily, we come in peace. We come bringing gifts for mankind and the world." But some won't. Some will always be so obnoxiously stupid they can't hear the truth when it's spoken. And they're going to always be afraid, and they're always going to try to compete, and they're always going to try to weaponize every single thing that occurs in their, every resource, and they're always going to try to make war, even if they have to deny the gifts that are being offered by what they don't even begin to understand. So I'm making this video today in a way, in loving memory, I think, of the 5 living beings that I have loved most in this entire world, who were with me for almost a decade, who I haven't seen for 2 years, and who I'm told met an untimely and horrifying end. Because that didn't happen. I mean, that didn't have to happen. The reason my heart beat, the reason I breathed, may have been tormented by those too stupid, too foul, And in this specific case, to completely, all the time, utterly, massively drugged out of their skulls. People who take cocaine, speed, alcohol, heroin, Adderall, antidepressants, this, that, the other, add food additives to the mix, and some of which cause brain damage or behavioral dysfunction, cognitive malfunction. People who try to be souls inhabiting bodies that have such a hideous chemical mix that they can't find their own consciousness. They can't concentrate. They can't be themselves because of all the stupid chemicals in their brain. How smart is that, really? Chemicals can make a sane, rational, otherwise loving person stupid and cruel. Chemicals can overtake the form. And you might be a soul, you might be an individual, you might be a consciousness capable of reason and peace. But you can put so many stupid chemicals in the rich mix of your brain that you can't find yourself in there anymore. So I may have lost my reason to live when those creatures were taken from me in my loving hands and my perfectly, unfailingly gentle, loving ways. But oh, lo, verily I say unto you, I have a whole new reason to live, and it's to seek justice and possibly to help find redemption for those who would destroy the world, themselves, and anything and everything that can be called innocence and love. It's January the 4th, 2022. This may be one of the worst years of human history. Or perhaps, somehow, redemption is possible for humanity. Amen to all that. Bye.